Why, hello there, and welcome back to the AgostinhoZinga show with me, your host, AgostinhoZinga, and this is episode number 444. That's 444. No Jay-Z. How you doing? How you feeling? My friends, great, amazing, good to have you. If it's your first time, check out the show via YouTube. You know what to do. Smash that like, smash that like, hit that like. Hit subscribe, leave me a comment down below, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. Engage. If you're listening via the podcast app, please leave me a 5-star review via the 5-star review platform. That helps to get the show out there. And of course, support via Patreon is more than welcome. I upload 2 bonus episodes per week on Patreon for my Patreon subscribers only. You can join there, support the cause for as little as $1, for as little as £1. You can support the cause. Obviously, higher tiers do apply if you want to apply for them. Do your thing. But you can sign up at patreon.com/Agostinho. That's patreon.com/AGOSTINHO to get access to my bonus episodes right on Patreon. Get involved. Get in. So, what's the deal, man? You guys all right? You guys good? Yeah, good. As you can tell, whenever I'm amped up like this, it's usually off the back of a pretty, I wouldn't say a rough evening or a rough day, but my life, as DSP said, my life's been tough. It's been tough. It's been a difficult one. The last ones. It's no surprise really that it's getting a little bit more difficult to be indoors. Obviously I can go to parks and stuff, but yeah, fair enough. I can go to parks. Cool. Yeah, safe. But it's a bit hard to be indoors at the moment with the sun's out, working and stuff not be open yet, right? Life isn't open to the level that I want it to be open to, aka clubs, all that sort of good stuff, right? Galleries, blah, 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 blah. Until that can run, that pubs on the weekend to go watch the football, like, oh, how I miss that. How I miss, you know what? Before I take it for granted, how I miss just going to the pub, rocking up with a 20, and getting myself as many Guinness as I can get for that amount of money, and then just watching the games from the beginning to the end. Right, sometimes I'll even watch the cricket. I don't even watch cricket. I'll just watch it just because, right? Just want to finish a pint and have a little chat with some of the locals in the pub. I miss that so much now. Just going to a local pub and doing so. So that's something I'm definitely going to do going forward. But anyway, so it's getting difficult. I have to be honest. It's getting way more difficult to sort of handle and staying indoors so long, and the fact that stuff is still taking so long to reopen. That whole premise that they had earlier on about, oh, we're going to be led by data and the numbers. If the numbers say that things are better, we're going to open sooner. So far, that hasn't happened. It's probably not going to happen. I don't blame them. They're taking the steady approach to things, and considering how we cocked it up last year and how messed up it was and how rudderless we were in terms of leadership and all that malarkey, it's no surprise that they're being as extra cautious as they can this time around, so we don't run into any hurdles that would cause us to go back into lockdown. Because if we did go back into another lockdown off the back of this amazing run of everyone staying indoors, numbers going down, vaccination rollouts going as high as they are at the moment, I think it would break some people. I know it would break me, and I would say I'm pretty mentally resolute, right? I've got a strong mental resolve. I'm able to kind of withstand quite a lot of setbacks all at once or in succession. I don't tend to kind of get myself down. But if we went into another lockdown, especially after the summer that we're probably going to have this year is going to be incredible, considering how warm it is already, I'll be really distraught. So it's been a bit difficult to be indoors and all that stuff, but same with everybody else. It's nothing unique in my part. But again, the light is still there at the end of the tunnel. People are still able to go out. It's quite nice to look outside my window at lunch and stuff and see people heading off to the park with beers and stuff in hand, hanging out with friends. There's a little bit more joy on the streets. That's just me looking outside and just having a peek. I see a lot more joy. There's a lot more laughter. I'm even hearing people play music again. I'm not sure about you, but what area you live in, especially if you live in the UK. But I've not really heard people playing music out of on loudspeaker in their from their car stereos, from their homes. You don't really hear it anymore. I guess people are just a bit down and dour. It's like the same thing when everyone stopped banging the pots and pans. So you don't really hear that. It kind of went a bit quiet. But so far, the last few weeks, the last few months, it's picked up a little bit. People's there's a smile on people's faces now. Music is blaring out of different places all over all over the gaff, and there's a little bit more of a sunny disposition coming across everybody's, face and whatever it may be. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we keep on this good trajectory that we're on, and we're all able to get back to some semblance of normality. But of course, if you live somewhere where it's not, I'm praying for you guys. Hold still, hold strong, be safe as well as much as you can. But also, if there are little things that are going to bring you some level of joy, that are going to allow you to have some semblance of normality, do that as well. Life is really too short to be hunkered down at home, just hoping that things reopen up again. Take that I won't say take your happiness into your own hands, but you know what I mean, innit? Be sensible, and if you could do something, do it. If not, of course, wait for the appropriate timing. Apart from that, what else has been going on? International football's on. Haven't really watched that. Don't get me wrong. I watched the second half of Poland versus England. England ended up winning 2-1, but a bit of a dead game. What else? Caught a little bit of the highlights from Germany game versus North Macedonia. Saw Timo Werner miss that big chance at the start. So a couple of things here and there. Many things on the socials. You know how it is. Same old malarkey as always. But before we get on in that, we've got some other things to talk about. So, as per usual, grab yourself a drink and whatever else you want to munch on so we can dive on deep to each topic and expand as we please. Expand as we please. Expand as we please. Topic number 1. This is courtesy of Mixmag. June 21st will be a bank holiday to celebrate the reopening of nightclubs. I'll repeat that again because my mouth feels like I've got a stroke. So it says here, June 21st. We'll get that again. June 21st will be a bank holiday to celebrate the reopening of nightclubs. This is courtesy of Mixmag. Hopefully it's not on April Fool's, but it says St. Sesher's Day. That's a pretty good name to call it. It says here the UK government has announced plans to a special one-off bank holiday on June 21st to celebrate the lifting of the social contact restrictions. That day also marks the return to nightclubs and festivals. Some clubs are already planning a reopening at midnight in the earliest hours of Monday morning. Booming, bruv. Imagine how fun that's going to be. You have to also consider, right, the UK generally hasn't necessarily been that place where we've been able to go clubbing from early Monday morning to let's say early Tuesday morning, right? It just doesn't really exist. It's sort of like a continental thing. The only thing that happened recently where it was sort of that sort of vibe was obviously Fold when it had its kind of first opening party and it ran for about 2.5 days, whatever. That was the only time you kind of felt that sort of happened. I know Ministry of Sound do something like that similar too, but it's not a lot of places basically in London that have that sort of really long day into another day sort of like time frame of opening hours. Sorry, Printworks have something similar, but their Printworks idea is pretty clever, where they seem to open up usually around lunchtime or just after lunchtime, so between 12 to 3, and then they close sometime just before 12, so that it gives everybody a chance to get the train back home and stuff. Obviously, with the 24-hour tube, Jubilee line's a bit easier, but that was the kind of premise around Printworks. So they can basically pack in a way longer opening time by opening it up for the majority of the day and then opening and leaving open, of course, for the majority of the night. So this is going to be pretty sick for people that live in the UK. It says here, Fabric is planning to extend its marathon reopening into a full week of celebrations. The club's artist liaison Max Marathon, that's a great name, isn't it? Max Marathon, who coordinates DJ riders and fluffs the green room pillows for disco nappers, said Ricardo Villalobos is locked and ready to helm a 24-hour set split across all 3 rooms, providing he can walk between them. More live details coming soon. Oh, this feels a little bit April Fool's-ish, I'm not going to lie. Mike Skin at the Streets recently released a Sesher anthem heralding the announced week-long events. Rave held the movie as a effing quality and big up the NHS and scientists for this one. He also announced he was releasing a follow-up single to Who's Got the Bag, who's called Who's Got Working Number Are You About, which should be released at 9 a.m. on June 21st. The government secretary of Getting in a State of Recreations and Holidays, the St. Honourable Stephen Escher, this move will be a welcome boost for the nighttime economy, which has been dealt a tough hand during the pandemic. We hope the celebration holiday will make the wake up for neglect and industry through this time, or at least make the public forget it. Vaccinations will also be a requirement for club entry. Okay, this is obviously a bit of a banter thing. It's April Fool's. I got it. It got me. It's an April Fool's. I got duped in real time, but regardless, it will be pretty cool if they did have some sort of like bank holiday to mark the June 21st, because it's going to be messy, innit? It's on a Monday as well, right? That's when clubs and stuff are meant to reopen in London. So it's going to be absolutely messy. People are going to be all over the place. There's going to be a lot of antisocial behavior. Let's just say that, which is part of the course. I could be optimistic and say, "Come on, guys, UK people, man, let's behave." All this stuff. I could do all that nonsense that people do, right? But we know how we are, innit? We know how we are. We know what time we're on. We're the messiest nation in the world. Do you know what I mean? We kind of rival Americans with the amount of mess when we kind of left our own devices. So what do you think is going to happen to everybody that's been locked indoors, with no social contact, with no ability to get on it the way they were getting on it prior, and they have now the ability to do so, carte blanche for the most part. Like I said in some other podcast, I'm pretty sure that week will be a little bit lax in terms of police presence. Yeah, might be a bit lax, so they might be a bit standoffish. They might allow things that they possibly wouldn't allow any other time. Places be allowed to open up maybe a bit earlier, close maybe a bit later. There'll be people able to sit out on the streets. It's gonna be an absolute bloodbath. So if you're thinking anything but that, I recommend you just get a whole grip on reality, because it's gonna be absolutely mad in the streets. Absolutely mad. There's no denying it. It's gonna be absolutely mad. And you know what? I'm looking forward to it. But as you can tell with me, if you listen to the podcast, the hay fever season has started for myself. I have now fully arrived in hay fever season. My nose feels blocked. It feels runny and all that good stuff, even though I've been using my inhaler and making sure I've been, taking my anti-allergy tablets. So please bear with me whilst I get myself sorted. I'm going to mute this camera so it doesn't pick up all the me sneezing and stuff. Okay, that worked pretty well, innit? Yeah, that's worked cool. Because other times I usually do it and I'll sneeze and the microphone will pick it all up and it just, or blow my nose. It's a bit unreal. It's a bit unruly. Talking about things that are annoying and talking about things that are super frustrating, this news really got a bee under my bonnet. So this is courtesy of The Verge. It says YouTube is experimenting with hiding dislikes to protect creators' well-being. Stats will still be available in the YouTube studio. Absolute nonsense. Now, when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, are they doing that thing that Instagram were thinking of doing when Kanye went on that rant about people's well-being and mental health, and maybe it was a mental health thing more so from Kanye's point of view with Instagram, and then from Instagram's point of view they're looking at taking away the number of likes and all that sort of stuff, more so to encourage people to share. Because I guess there was this idea that because people were so hell-bent on making sure certain posts got a certain amount of likes, it was sort of holding them back from posting more regular on Instagram and interacting with it and engaging with the app. Hence why they redesigned it and jigged stuff around so you could basically upload more things on there. They want you to spend as much time as possible on the app. Hence why they have a shop built into it. Hence why they've taken away a lot of the influencer tools and stuff. So you have to basically taking away as many influence tools as they can so people don't bounce off of the app. Hence why they probably did that whole OnlyFans thing where they took away a lot of I think no, they flat out deleted a lot of accounts of OnlyFans girls and stuff, because obviously they would link their OnlyFans account on their bio, and I guess Instagram doesn't want people to get knocked out completely to another competitor quote unquote site. Blah blah blah. Long story short, I thought YouTube would do the same sort of thing, right? Because obviously the like and dislike bar on YouTube, same way with views and comments, it's an integral part of the YouTube ecosystem. It's sort of similar to how I thought the beginning of the end was when Resident Advisor decided to take away the comments, because part of the community and part of what made that site special was the community that existed on the comment section of Resident Advisor website. Now I know it exists on underneath their Twitter comments on when they post and Facebook stuff they'd argue, but the actual community and where it thrived was that whole interaction in the comment section itself and people sharing it on the other social platforms. Blah blah blah. It is what it is. The moment they took that away, the moment that website completely died, and now maybe apart from myself and a few others, there's not many people that are checking for the Resident Advisor website day in day out. So I thought YouTube doing that would be the death nail in their sort of coffin and stuff. But considering how integral the like and dislike bar is to the overall experience, and considering that it obviously drives people to sometimes view a video if the dislikes are really high or the upvotes are really high, it has some sort of role to play in how you basically digest the content that's on that site. It made me think, what, it's not gonna happen. They're not gonna do it, because part of the reason why people use YouTube is because they can get some dislike things, leave comments and whatnot, and what not need be. But as things have progressed And as you know, big companies have gotten involved, and YouTube has obviously given us an indication that they kind of favor the bigger kind of mainstream, TV cable networks, shows, personalities, purposely putting money behind people like Brie Larson's and pushing out her channel's got like 500,000 subs or something. She doesn't really do that much on there, I don't think. It's a pretty mediocre, let's say, YouTuber. She's a pretty mediocre YouTuber for all things considered, even though of course she's like an A-list Hollywood actress. But there's obviously a concerted effort to push certain people, to prop up certain videos, to push people in the algorithm, put them on trending, all this sort of like really fugazi stuff. And ultimately what's happened, I think, is that those big studios and those big personalities like those Brie Larsons and people like, Disney's, whatever they may be, they're now getting a little bit upset that, fans such as me and you have the option to basically voice our displeasure at the things that they do via the like and dislike bar, and also via leaving comments, but mostly via the likes and dislike bar, because optically, and it kind of puts people off watching a video and immediately lets you know that maybe this video isn't going to be of interest. And of course, it can add to the likelihood that it's not going to be pushed by the algorithm, whatever it may be. But they just want to limit that appeal or that possibility for us to voice our opinion in any meaningful way, which is really disappointing, because ultimately this is eventually going to hurt the smaller creators like myself, but it's also going to hurt the entire experience of using YouTube in the first place, because it's probably the only platform where certain individuals, influencers, look at people like David Dobrik, all this sort of stuff's happening recently with James Charles. It's the only way fans actually have an opportunity to hold people accountable for their actions, especially if it doesn't jive with what they're about, right? Like and dislikes, leaving comments. Now again, you could just ignore it like Nikita Dragon and not pretend like it's not happening. But for the most part, those kind of mechanisms, they play an integral role in kind of stopping certain things, bringing certain things to light, allowing creators maybe to go back to the drawing board, or just simply informing big studios, big production companies, wherever they may be, that the fans don't want this. And it's such a weird thing, I think, especially people like Disney and stuff, right, where they purposely don't want to listen to the fans. They purposely want to do everything but address and appeal to the fans. Lucasfilm, whatever you want to call them, right? All these big brands out there. And then when the fans voice their displeasure, they also don't want to listen. So you don't want to hear what we have to say. You don't want to see what we have to say. And ultimately, you don't care what we say. So in general, we have no voice in whatsoever in some of these, products and platforms that we've invested, the best part of our entire adult existence kind of following. It's really disappointing. So let's continue on with the The Verge article. So the following. YouTube has announced it's experimenting with hiding dislikes to discourage dislike mobs from deliberately downvoting videos from creators and channels. The experiment is a different implementation that solutions the company has previously discussed, but it is similar to other app attempts platforms like Instagram have taken up to nip targeted attacks in the bud. The current setup stats for both likes and dislikes are viewable in the creator individual studio, but only likes will be displayed publicly on the video. In support article explaining the test, YouTube says that dislikes can negatively impact a creator's well-being and may motivate targeted campaigns or dislikes on a creator's video. Basically, the idea is that seeing a dislike number and watching it go up could be enough to motivate motivation to join in and make the number larger. Yes, that's true. That's obviously not an exaggeration. There's definitely people that go out there and dislike mob a certain video, but I would hazard a guess that out of 10 videos that get bombed in the dislikes, for the most part, I'd say maybe 8 or let's say 7 to be like fair of those videos. 7 out of those 10 videos are justifiably downvoted. There's a legit reason why that has happened, and why maybe the creator of the channel hasn't addressed it. Maybe they're trying to hold them account, remind people, whatever it may be. There is a legit reason behind it. It's very rarely people get unfairly downvote bombed on YouTube for the most part. And like I said, it's such a, not like I said, but the odd thing as well about this whole thing is it's as if they're like purposely trying to change the nature of what it is to be a creative. You're never going to please everybody. You're never going to be everyone's cup of tea. There's going to be people out there that are going to be annoyed by your face, by your voice, by your mannerisms, everything that you do. So to take away all these mechanisms in an effort to protect people's well-being, you're also not basically providing a platform that is real life, right? That's basically a skewed way of how it is to be a creator in the real world. People can argue, oh, YouTube isn't the real world, but yes, it is an element of the real world. And it just doesn't make any sense, really, because in the real world, when you step out there and you put something, you put your name to something, or you step in front of the camera and you put yourself out there, as people say, you're opening yourself up for criticism and praise, right? It's obviously high risk, high reward. It's just the nature of the beast. And to take this away in an effort to heal, people, and to, aid their mental health is a little bit short-sighted, and also doesn't really go to address the actual problem that's at hand there, right? The fact that maybe it's so easy to leave comments on people's accounts, it's so easy to set up channels to troll people, whatever it may be. There are things that are actually people abusing the copyright system, for instance. There's things that actually need to be addressed, I think, more so than just the dislikes and likes bar. But hey, what do I know? And of course, there's a little illustration here showing it, which is ridiculously redundant. Essentially, you've got the like and dislike bar on the left-hand side. I mean, the emote or the kind of icons or whatever. On the likes, you've got the numbers, and then under dislike, you just got dislike written in text. If you're going to take away the dislike bar, there is no argument to be said that you might as well just take away the upvote, right? There's no reason to have a like and a dislike bar if you're going to only show the numbers for one. You might as well take both off and just have the views there as a thing, or do what they did prior, right? Well, it was the stars. I wonder what happened with the stars. I think the same thing happened with stars as what happened with the like and dislike, I'm assuming, right? That's the same thing, I'm pretty sure. But it doesn't make any sense, really. I continue to hear creators rely on likes and dislikes as a form of feedback to guide their creative output, but much like purposely giving a game a bad review on a stream, it's easy to turn that, what? Much like purposely giving a game a bad review in the stream. Isn't that your prerogative, though? If you bought the game, you can give any review you want. What kind of write-up is this? It's easy to turn what could be useful feature into another surface for abuse. When YouTube first announced it was looking into addressing the problem with dislikes, it was considering three ideas: hiding the numbers for both likes and dislikes, adding more friction for disliking something through it requiring extra interaction, or removing likes and dislike entirely. Now, I quite like the second one, which would mean basically, you know how sometimes on YouTube it asks you to sort of like leave a review for a channel or for a video, like so it'll be a random little drop down menu. That might make more sense, where you click dislike and it will say to you, which are you sure, or which part of the video did you not like, first, second, or beginning, whatever, something like that, just to kind of give you an extra step so people don't automatically just click it and keep moving. This test does half of what the first option proposed, and it makes a certain amount of sense. If the dislike numbers are the problem, why not just hide them and see what happens? Instagram experimented with a similar kind of test when it decided to hide likes on posts. Obviously, likes are inherently positive, but chasing a high like count can have its own negative impact on creators whose livelihoods depend on closely monitoring interactions with their posts and appearing well liked. YouTube isn't testing hiding dislikes on all creators' videos, but it noticed them on your page, or you have an opinion of a viewer. YouTube is collecting feedback on its site. Hopefully people say no. The funny thing is, this will just end up getting, people will end up finding a loophole in it anyway. They'll just end up finding a way to basically voice their displeasure that isn't just dislikes. So for instance, imagine a video has like 1 million views, but it only has a couple of likes on it. And then you go in the comments and it's like, nearly 10,000 comments. It's pretty clear to see that the video isn't doing that well and people aren't happy with what the content is about or whatever it may be. So they'll just get around it, right? It's the same way. I think that's how it happens on Twitter, right? People get ratioed. That's the whole idea, right? Where you have the like and the retweet. But then if there's way more comments than retweets and likes, it definitely goes to show that people don't generally agree with what that person is saying. But yeah, I think this is a terrible idea. Again, it's another death knell in YouTube. Another indication that they're purposely catering to the bigger platforms. Wouldn't surprise me if a company like Disney were the ones that were at the kind of the forefront of leading this charge. I read an article the other day, supposedly it was Joe Biden. He basically was responsible for maybe putting this or suggesting this to somebody at YouTube, maybe spoke to Susan, I don't know. But something occurred there that obviously is now going to negatively affect creators in the long run. It's only going to help the bigger channels to kind of stave off any kind of criticism or accountability. And in the end, we're still going to be uploading videos because we've got nowhere else to go. Let's move on there from that one. We don't want this. Oh yeah, this is a tragic story, isn't it? So this is courtesy of Good Morning America. So I'm sure most of you are aware of this tragic story that happened, I think, a couple of days ago, where an UberEats driver was unfortunately killed in the process of being carjacked. It was like a really odd thing where these two young girls were visiting from out of town or something. I read they taser the driver of the Uber Eats car. They get involved in a tussle. Somehow the girl slip into the car. The Uber Eats driver tries to hang on to get his car back. They speed around the corner, and then from that moment on, something happens where the car flips to its side. The driver gets flung, off from the door. It looks like he hits a gate somewhere, and essentially dies on the scene. And the two young ladies who carjacked the car try to run off, but bystanders kind of stop them. And I think you overhear one of the girls as the guy is lying motionless on the floor. She's basically saying, "Oh, my phone's in my phone," and it's just so macabre, right? This guy is essentially lifeless on the floor, right? His life has been completely taken from him in a very senseless act of violence, and they're more worried about their smartphone. It's really, really tragic. But I'll play the video for you guys now, just so you can have an idea of what I'm talking about, and then I'll give you my other opinion on the other side.
To that horrific story out of D.C., a carjacking that left a delivery driver there dead. But now two teenage girls, ages 15 and 13, have been charged with assaulting him with a stun gun, leading to the crash that killed him. A lot of questions being asked now, including if services like Uber Eats need to do more to protect drivers. Our Ariel Reshef joins us now with the very latest. Good morning, Ariel.
Good morning to you, TJ. That deadly attack on a 66-year-old Uber Eats driver happened in broad daylight, 4:30 p.m. as he was trying to deliver food. Those two teen suspects arrested in a shocking and senseless crime.
This morning, two teenage girls arrested, charged with felony murder and armed carjacking after police say they violently attacked and killed an Uber Eats driver in Washington, D.C. Police say the suspects, just 13 and 15 years old, were in the process of trying to steal 66-year-old Mohammed Anwar's car when one of them used a taser on him as they tried to speed off, which police say led to the deadly car crash, the car flipping over, Anwar ejected. He was rushed to the hospital with life-threatening injuries, but did not survive. The teens arrested at the scene. Anwar's loved ones calling the sudden loss immeasurable, telling ABC News the father of 3 and grandfather of 4 moved to the U.S. from Pakistan in 2014 to build a better life for himself and his family.
It's more than tragic. I don't even know if that word describes what happened. It's senseless.
Police say they've seen a spike in carjackings in Washington, D.C. and in several other major cities since the pandemic began. In 2020, 345 carjackings were reported in the nation's capital, more than double the year before. The city launching a task force just last month to help focus on these incidents.
Because it's very important that we find out the people who are responsible for these carjackings and that we have justice.
Uber driver.
Crazy, isn't it, right? Absolutely crazy, man. And this definitely is a symptom of the pandemic, of course. It definitely is. We definitely have to kind of consider that. The fact that people have been locked indoors for, a prolonged period of time. The fact that people's earning potentials are completely drastically, diminished in some respects. I would imagine even the fact that even if you were a criminal, I think the possibility for you to conduct crime in any sort of kind of, meaningful manner, if you can say it that way, is probably been diminished somewhat too because everyone's at home. So it kind of limits your opportunities to conduct any sort of criminal activity. Of course, police forces are now being told to stand off and not, essentially arrest people when it comes to petty sort of crime, quote unquote. And it's just led to this kind of really horrendous situation that we're in now at the moment where two teenagers, right? Barely teenagers are now completely ruined their entire lives through this one senseless act of kind of selfishness. An entire family has been robbed of their grandfather and somebody that was kind of, essentially a big part of their family. And now everyone's left scratching their heads. And the funny thing for me, the odd thing as well, is this kind of conversation around Uber Eats. It's not really an Uber Eats discussion. It's more so a discussion about how we as a society are looking at kind of transitioning or kind of stepping out from the lockdown. What are the things that we're going to put into place to prevent these situations from arising? Why are two teenage girls even thinking that this is a kind of advantageous way for them to kind of, I don't know, get a little bit of excitement in their life, or to essentially maybe make some money. Why is this the only option that they feel is on the table? Why is maybe as there's an option on the table for somebody like an Anwar, the gentleman that passed away? Why does he only have to do a job like that? Let's kind of open up the conversation and really figure out ways that we can kind of get to a place where these sort of situations don't need to transpire. And again, I don't think it's an Uber Eats thing. I think Uber Eats are providing people with the ability to, provide for themselves and for their family, especially during this tough time. I would imagine being an Uber Eats driver or delivery driver, wherever else it may be, the demand is probably super high. They're probably inundated with applications, people that want to actually go out there and represent their brand and deliver food or take people from A to B. People are willing to jump in your car during this time as well. There's loads of things out there with this sort of thing, but it's just distressing to see this sort of happening to a guy who's just minding his own business, and it really wasn't hurting anybody, and now essentially he's been taken away from his family through just one senseless act of criminality that, really has kind of destroyed 3 people's lives, isn't it? The 2 girls, obviously the family of the victim. Like, nobody wins from this. Absolutely devastating. But I do think the conversation around Uber Eats is a bit short-sighted. This is definitely a societal issue that needs to be addressed at the highest levels of office. It needs to really get in, really need to get down in the weeds with it. It's less about Uber Eats and more so societal. That's just my opinion on that one. We move on there. Then we've got another distressing video, a distressing video, but also another indication for me personally of what actually happens in real life. There's a lot of posturing and, virtue signaling online when it comes to societal issues, social justice issues, political issues. But in the actual day-to-day runnings of life, you get to see how people actually conduct themselves and what they actually do in the face of adversity, or what they actually do when somebody needs their help, right? Or what they actually do when somebody's in pain, when somebody's distressed, whatever it may be. And this is a good indication that most people are full of shit. Most people are full of complete shit. Now, of course, the uptick in violence against Asians in the US could be blamed on many different things. It's there's people out there that can even argue with the fact that, is this violence that we're seeing really being directed at people from an Asian descent, or is it just a symptom of the times that we're living in during the pandemic? The fact that Asians are being assaulted in metropolitan cities where they mostly live it's just a coincidence, blah, blah, blah. Who knows, right? But regardless, we are seeing a lot more videos on our social media feed of very frail, very old, sometimes very young Asian people who are getting assaulted on the streets by various different people. It's obviously something that's occurring. So with that being said, it's obviously in everyone's zeitgeist. It's in our mind sphere. We're thinking about it at the moment. So you would be remiss to think, if you were on the street and you happen to see a frail old Asian lady somewhere getting pushed around by some dude, you would probably feel it's your duty to maybe step in and maybe not stop the whole thing, maybe not kind of physically kind of insert yourself in there, but maybe shout from a distance and let that person know that, hey, what you're doing isn't cool. Alert them in some way in hope that they maybe stop so that the old lady can get up and move away. Whatever, you'd want to do something. You'd imagine so, right? But that's not what actually happens. What actually happens most of the time is that when people get involved in physical altercations, especially when it doesn't involve them and they're just seeing other people getting involved in it, and it's something that's where it's not their business, they tend to turn a blind eye, because people rarely, if ever, want to get involved when people actually need help. But they'd much rather just retweet something, share a post, than actually insert themselves in a situation that might get them hurt. That's the facts of the matter, and it's really distressing to see, but this video kind of proves it.
The Department of Justice launching a new effort to track, investigate, and prosecute hate crime offenders. The White House creating a task force to try to fight the rise in violence against Asians during the pandemic. And the FBI holding nationwide trainings to recognize and report anti-Asian bias. Few cities have been spared the violence, but data shows spikes in Boston, Philly, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix, and the worst of it all in New York. From 3 Asian hate crimes in 2019 to 28 last year, and
Jesus
already
Christ.
33 this year. We're about to show the latest attack, but a warning to you now, it is difficult to watch. Police say a 65-year-old woman was walking to church when a
Jesus
man
Christ.
punched and kicked her while shouting anti-Asian slurs. This is Midtown Manhattan.
Holy shit.
You can see the attacker stomping on the woman's upper body and head 3 times after she fell onto the sidewalk. A security guard watched the whole time, and then more show up. None stopped the attacker, not one. No one helped the woman. One even appeared to close the door on her.
Crazy, right? And in reality, that's actually the truth of what actually happens in the real world. Most people don't care. Most people don't want to get involved. Most people want to pretend like whatever's happening in front of them isn't actually happening. They don't want to face the reality of the situation that's going on. And the distressing part of it is, more often than not, the people who are watching are from the very same community that person's from, have people that they know from that community. So it's not as if, like, you know, they're that distance from you that you kind of feel like they're not something that you want to get involved in. No, the minority experience with living in a city, especially a metropolitan city like New York, is probably the same for all minorities. It's a rat race. You're all in the shit. You're all having to scrape and scrap for whatever else that you can get to make sure you put food on the table and keep a roof over your head. So there should be this weird kind of underlying kinship that exists amongst you all. You might hate each other at the best of times, but in the worst of times, you got each other's back. But no, in reality, that doesn't happen. That's why sometimes I get annoyed when I see people sharing things and posting stuff on social, because that's easy to do. The hard thing to do is this. The hard thing to do is to go out there and confront a black dude that looks like he's 250 pounds, right? He looks like he's physically able to maybe give you a bit of a beating and tell him to let go or leave that old lady alone. That's a difficult thing to do, because you might end up getting yourself hurt. You might end up making the situation worse. But what would you rather do? Stand there like a coward and not do anything? And then again, let's talk about the security guards. The distressing part about the security guards is that more likely than not, they are migrants, or they're from a minority community themselves. Whether they're black, Hispanic, whatever they are, or maybe even Asian, they're of a minority community themselves. They probably got that job to support their own family. It's maybe one of their second jobs. It's a job that's actually providing them with the ability to keep the lights on in their house. So through this public outrage, through people like myself making videos, more attention is going to be brought to this video. People are going to be chastising them. And eventually, guess what happened? Because people love to do the social justice thing online, they'll end up getting fired, they'll lose their jobs, and their families will be desolate because there will be no option and possibility for them to keep the lights on, because daddy lost his job because he didn't want to get involved with something that he, in his right to be honest, because I still think it's cowardly. I would have got involved myself, but I'm sure the rules would stipulate, if you're a security guard for a hotel, wherever that is, or a residential building, whatever that may be, I'm pretty sure the rules are you can't actually go outside and sort of like enforce your will or do your job. Your job only kind of limits you to that door, which is why I think American people, when they shoplift, run, right? Because usually security guards can't chase you, whereas in the UK they can. Well, they shouldn't, but in the UK they do chase you down the street. But in America, you don't really see them chasing you through the car park. As soon as you kind of leave the building sort of thing, they sort of kind of let you go. So in there, I would imagine by law, they're probably right in their own regards, right? They're probably within their rights to stay in that door and not make a move. But surely if you saw a 65-year-old Asian lady walking home, carrying her bags, minding her business, getting kicked repeatedly in the head, okay, forget if you saw them having a tussle and you thought, okay, you don't know who the guy is, that could be her son, I don't know, you don't know what's going on there. But from time you see a guy kicking a 65-year-old woman in the head repeatedly, 5 feet away from you, you can't say nothing. You can't say anything. You can't even just like shout just to kind of startle them a little bit. Nothing. You just stand there and then you go up to the door and you close the door. And again, like I said, the tragic thing about it is I'm pretty sure that these security guards are minorities. And if they're not minorities, that job is a very crucial part of their income stream. It's a very crucial part of allowing them the ability to support their family or themselves. And now that job is going to go because they weren't brave enough to step outside and defend somebody who is defenseless. That's the disgusting part of it. And all these people saying stop Asian hate, all this sort of malarkey, save your post. Because if somebody's actually getting beaten up outside on the street and you happen to be going home somewhere, or you're not dressed the right way, or you feel as if that guy is a bit too big, you're going to walk away and turn a blind eye, because most people are cowards. That's the really annoying part. That's what gets my real bee under my bonnet. Most people are cowards, and they would rather do the easy thing, like, retweet, leave a comment somewhere on the post, than actually go out there and confront these bigots, confront these vile humans that decide that it's within their remit to go out there and, you know, beat up every Asian person they see because they blame them for the pandemic. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But again, am I surprised? Hell no. Hell no. What else is going on here? Update. Okay, so this is not really useful, and it's probably a bit counterintuitive, and maybe I kind of will lobby this into the area of scaremongering. I don't think it is scaremongering, but maybe someone would say that. So this is courtesy of Fox News, and it says rare skin condition, or rare reaction to COVID-19 vaccine likely caused man's skin to swell, peel, doctors say. So it says the following. A Virginia man is rebounding from a days-long hospital stay after suffering severe skin reaction to what his doctors believe was a Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, which if you remember, that's the one where if you get the one jab, you're fine. You don't need two. Richard Terrell has since made a full recovery, and one of his doctors told Fox News that he remains thankful to have received the shot. He began experiencing itchiness on his body about 3 or 4 days after receiving the jab. The symptoms eventually progressed to discomfort, and by the time the 74-year-old landed at the VCU Medical Center, the rash covered his body from head to toe, his legs were swollen, and his skin began peeling. Quote, "It was stinging, burning, and itching," Terrell told 8 News. "Whenever I bent my arms and my legs, like the inside of my knee, it was painful where the skin was swollen and rubbing against itself." Oh my God, this sounds like eczema times 10. Yes. One of the dermatologists, Dr. FNU Newton, told Fox News that while his case was rare and possibly the first reported instance of such reaction to the Johnson & Johnson shot, it is not unusual for vaccine or medication to including everyday ones, to cause skin reactions. Newton said the team worked diligently to eliminate other potential triggers for the reaction before concluding that the vaccine was likely the cause. Lots of patients come in and say, "I got the vaccine, here's what happened, and I'm sure it's a vaccine," Newton told Fox News. "We are very careful when we see such patient. We want to make sure we have ruled out the more common causes of the reaction. Most commonly, it would be antibiotics or something they took, even over the counter." Now, this isn't a problem, right? Personally, for me, I think this is something you sort of saw happening in Germany, where they kind of got a bee in their bonnet about AstraZeneca, about the whole blood clots thing. But I don't know what it is, but I'm an adult, right? And I was very much kind of aware that this vaccine was rushed somewhat. Usually they say vaccines take 10 years to develop and approve. We did this within 9 to 10 months, right? So it's obviously been fast tracked in some way, shape or form. I was very kind of content with it being fast forward, with it being kind of rushed. And I was also kind of okay with the idea that there would be some side effects that might be fatal for some people. And I would imagine most people were okay with that too, because what was the other scenario? The other scenario is that we do it, a slow, steady development of a vaccine, like, as we normally do. Maybe let's not say 10 years, let's say 5 years. That's still a lot of time to live under some level of a lockdown in order for us to get back to living our normal lives. But the other option is to maybe rush the vaccine a bit, have some unintended consequences when it comes to reactions that might be fatal, but then have the ability to reopen the world within a 2-year period. That seems like a far better option, and maybe a less, a sort of like a risk you're willing to take for our freedoms. But it's just the fact that you can't speak about this sort of stuff is the weirdest thing. And secondly, it's as if some parts of the media don't want to let these stories kind of, permeate or be reported upon, because they feel as if they're not constructive when they are. Because if you're an adult, you're going to make this adult decision to whether or not you're going to get the vaccine or not. I'm still going to get mine, because obviously I want to go clubbing. So I'm willing to give up some levels of my own privacy and civil liberties so I can go back into a nightclub. I'm willing to make that deal with the devil. And I think other adults, if they saw the pictures, I'm not going to show you because they're disgusting, but the pictures of the guy's legs and how they inflamed and whatnot, and how they got all peely and all that malarkey, they're still going to have to make a decision based on their own set of circumstances as to what they want to do going forward. And I think that's completely fine. I don't see it as a problem. I don't see why the news will be purposely trying to put some stories down so you wouldn't hear about them just so that it can encourage people to go get vaccines. It doesn't really make any sense, because if you don't want to get it, you're not going to get it. It doesn't matter if people say that the vaccine gives them wings. If you're one of those anti-vax people, you're just going to say, nah, not for me, thank you. And you have the right to say so. I just don't get this world we're living in now where everyone has to kind of have the same opinion or the same worldview and stuff, whatever it may be. Now, is it detrimental to your overall health in the long run? Who knows? Maybe it is. But you should be allowed to decide whether or not you want to take the vaccine or not. And if you don't want to take it, no amount of suppressing news of kind of bad reactions is going to change that, in my opinion, anyway. I think I'm still going to get, like I said, I'm still going to get mine. As soon as I'm eligible to get mine, I'm going to be first in line. I'm not taking any chance whatsoever. Actually, the funny thing, talking about vaccines, loads of my friends in my social group are doing that whole hustle where they basically take themselves off as a carer or something so they can get the vaccine themselves. It's a bit of a loophole I think you could basically get around in order to get it. I know some people are doing the whole public figure thing and something else. There's a few other influencers that got it. There's obviously that concierge service that some people are doing too if you've got the money, where essentially they fly you to like a place like the UAE or something, somewhere in the Middle East, all expenses and stuff, and you basically get put up in an amazing hotel. They have a doctor there, you have your jabs in an all-inclusive hotel. You get your own floor, jacuzzi, all that malarkey, and then they kind of fly you back in the same airline. So people are doing that too. So there's a lot of people out there, especially my friends in my feed, who I'm seeing out socializing with no mask, who are kind of double, triple masked up last year, who I for sure have got the vaccine. But I'm interested, if you're in my age group, have you got your vaccine already? Have you got your vaccine? Because we're obviously not meant to get it because we're under 50s, right? So we're not meant to get our vaccines yet by law, legally. But if you've got yours already, let me know. Did it hurt? Are you feeling better now? What's your kind of outlook for the future? Have you gone out there and started snogging mad random people? Have you gotten into mad random hookups? Like, what's going on? I want to know what the temperature is like out there, because I'm a little bit of a goody two shoes. I don't want to get the vaccine before I'm eligible to get it. So, but let me know if you've done it already yourself. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. What else do we have here? And then, of course, we've got this really funny, interesting news. Not funny really. But this is courtesy of Breaking 911. This is on Twitter. It says, just in, new CDC study finds that nearly 80% of people hospitalized with COVID-19 were overweight or obese. Let me repeat that one more time. New CDC study finds... CDC is the Center for Disease and Control. Study finds that nearly 80% of people hospitalized with COVID-19 were overweight or obese. Now, if you're Joe Rogan, you're going to be punching the air, telling people to go and do star jumps and burpees. But this is an interesting conversation that needs to be spoken about. Like, obviously, we know COVID has been, unfairly affecting people who have, health issues prior and who are generally overweight. It's definitely been taking them out, especially if you remember the first few weeks when COVID was really ramping up, the second wave, I forgot when it was, sometime just after the summer. You saw the pictures of people that are passing away, and it was, your eyes didn't lie. You knew everyone that you're seeing that was kind of getting it the worst way were really, really big. And it was something I only wanted to talk about because, of course, it's sensitive. No one wants to be kind of chastised during this kind of, very bleak time. You don't want to keep getting reminded that you're a fat piece of shit. Do you know what I mean? No one wants that. It's not kind of the nicest thing to hear from anybody, regardless of the situation that we're in. But it is something it's something that we actually do need to have a conversation about, like how we address health and how we address the impact that plays into our overall mortality. We saw, obviously, with Boris Johnson, he decided to get a bit fit and healthy during the summer. Of course, he had his brief running with COVID last year, which from some reports of people close to him, he was, touch and go whether or not he would survive. And he kind of lost a bunch of weight now. He's been running a bit, walking his dog, all that kind of good stuff. But still, it's a very touchy subject to talk about. People don't really want to divulge or get into it. Of course, the body positive people out there will tell you that, health at any size, but quite clearly this virus is telling you that that's not the case. It's telling you that your chances of kind of being affected, really badly by this virus are kind of exasperated if you are unhealthy. And it just is what it is. If you're overweight and obese, of course, as stipulated by that CDC guideline. It's a really massive, study. I didn't read the entire PDF, But that's the kind of byline that came out of it. I'm sure there's more to the story. I'm sure there's a lot more detail to it that I'm missing out. But it's definitely a conversation that needs to be had around, how, like, our conversations around health in general, body size, fatness, weight, all this sort of good stuff needs to be we need to have an honest grown-up conversation around it. That's what I basically think, because we can't be having a situation where, in this developed world that we're in now, 2020, 2021, people are passing away from a respiratory virus because they're too fat. That's just such a bad way to go out. Do you know what I mean? Like, such a bad way, I would imagine anyway. But hey, what do I know? And then, of course, on the other side of things, you've got here from France. France schools are to close under their third lockdown. France schools to close under third lockdown. There you go here. President Emmanuel Macron looking quite forlorn there. It says the following: French schools will close for at least 3 weeks as part of a national restrictions to fight against the COVID cases. The President Emmanuel Macron says, Mr. Macron said that schools would move to remote learning from next week. Lockdown measures introduced in some areas of France earlier this month are also being extended to other districts. All non-essential shops are to close from Saturday, and there will be a ban on traveling for more than 6 miles from your home without good reason. The country is facing a peak of 5,000 people in intensive care. On Wednesday, the country's health minister reported 59,038 new cases. France has so far reported more than 4.6 million cases of coronavirus and 95,495 COVID-related deaths. Absolutely wild, isn't it? Like, again, man, I pray for all my neighbors out there in France, all my fellow EU citizens currently living out there, or wherever, or people in general living out in France. I don't even know. I don't know what I would do if we went under another lockdown to some extent. I just don't know how I'll be able to handle it. So, a third lockdown, considering how warm it is, considering how picturesque parts of France are, which is definitely going to exasperate people's, will and determination to get through this. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this is the last lockdown that you guys are getting yourself through. We can only hope. We can only hope. So on the other side, let's just crack on with a few of these other things before we head out. What time have we used up so far? Great. So festivals. So many festivals are on. So many festivals, so many things all at one time. Everyone's gagging to go out, and it's really cool to see. I have to be honest, it's flipping great to see the appetite for going outdoors, enjoying yourself, throwing your hands up in the air like you just don't care is where it should be. And there's no better example than Parklife in Manchester, which is completely sold out from the last time I checked. This is kind of a link from Twitter here from the 23rd of March. And last time I checked, the whole entire thing is completely sold out. But the lineup for it is flipping meaty. So this is Parklife 2021 is here. It says here in the tweet, tag 3 friends, so on Wednesday, such availability. But look at the lineup itself. The lineup is absolutely meaty. You got Dave, you've got Megan Thee Stallion, Disclosure, The Baby. The front of the lineup, don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of, but let's continue. It's better actually than the website. The website's got like a GIF, so it kind of moves around. It kind of trips you out a bit. But hey, it's Skepta, Jamie XX. Of course, Jamie XX, he's like a permanent fixture on the festival scene in the UK. He can put out, not to be bad to the guy, but mediocre after mediocre album and EP, and he still gets booked. He's definitely been grandfathered in through the XX, which I don't blame. The XX were, at their peak, they were an incredible band, incredible band. So it's no surprise that people are still remembering him fondly during that time, providing him opportunity to kind of continue making a living. Because if you do, I'd imagine you have a right. If you do create music to a level that XX did at their pomp, you should be grandfathered in. You should be given the ability to just play at any venue, anytime, every season, regardless, right? It continues here. AJ Tracy, Burna Boy, Eric Prides, Carl Cox, Mabel, Young Thug, Bicep, Fortet, Pendulum Trinity, Camel Fat, Kitchenada, Slow Tie, Nines, Kofi, Jamie Jones, Peggy Goo. Of course she's there. Adam Bayer, of course he's there. I wonder if someone's going to kiss his ring this time around over there. Sarah's D, Annie Mac, The Blessed Madonna. Nice to see her back there again. Andy C, Joseph Capriati, bang, head up strong. He recovered from getting stabbed by his dad, so that's good to see. Loco Dice, John Hopkins, mad lineup in it. The lineup is insane. Becky Hill, whoever that is, Little Sims, KSI. Oh my god, KSI is playing. Imagine going to a festival and watching KSI. Solado and KSI. That's like what that's the kind of music that you'd think someone would play just as before your life is about to end, isn't it? Michael Bibby, of course, the Ket King, Shy FX, Eats Everything, Ida Engberg down there. Ida Engberg, imagine your husband is all the way over here and then you're all the way down there as Ida, isn't it? Women always get the short end of the stick. Cheryl there, Pausers there. Yeah, some mad tech housey people and stuff. Oh, Barely Legal, I know her. She's there. That's cool. Shy Girl, but look, it gets smaller and smaller, innit? Who's the smaller ones here? You've got Shy Girl, Olive Pirate Copy, Understate, Cole MC. It's absolutely mad, isn't it? The lineup is pretty mad, pretty healthy. So let's see what happens in it going forward. We haven't heard so much from Wireless. Wireless still haven't kind of put out there where they're going to, who they're going to know. They've put out the locations, especially meant to be in Crystal Palace, but not the lineup. But I quite like this Parklife lineup. So if you got yourself a ticket, count yourself lucky. Let's actually see that site. Did they actually put out more tickets? I'm pretty sure it's all sold out. Yeah, Parklife 2021 revealed and sold out. So it's all gone, mate. It's all absolutely gone. So big up everybody that got themselves a ticket. This season, the festival is going to be absolutely fun. I can't wait. What else we got here in terms of festivals? No, let's move on for that. We don't want to talk about that one. Oh yeah, this is good. So as most of you are aware, I'm a big fan of Dixon, and obviously Innovisions and the label and everyone else that's on that roster, from to Tricks to Jimmy Jules, and they've put together another really great immersive party, similar in the stuff that they do with Lost to the Sound and whatever it may be. It's called Labyrinth. It's an open air party. It's going to be hosted in a place called Toft Manor, which is in Soldrup Road, MK something, 10th of July, and it looks flipping bang. And of course the lineup, is to be expected. You got and Dixon playing back to back, Alex Medina, Carista, Jennifer Cardini, Jimmy Jules, Lola Harrow, Nick Castle, Sophia Cortesis, Tricks, and Tisha, I'd imagine how you pronounce it. And the actual location of itself is just beautiful, right? Look at that location. Look at that countryside manor. Absolutely beautiful, right? So a bit of the description here. It says, I always like reading event descriptions for raves, isn't it? They're always so unnecessarily wordy. Let's see what it says here. Dixon and return in the UK for their first back-to-back set in the country since 2019, alongside a wonderful array of some of the most exciting producers and sectors out there. Be prepared to venture out and hustle and bustle of our towns and cities to the stunningly beautiful Toft Manor, surrounded by nothing but natural beauty of the UK countryside. This will also be the first time that the dance music community has experienced such a unique space. Those who dare will find the Labyrinth the venue. Toft Manor is a magical new open-air venue for groundbreaking music. Great, right? So I would imagine the great thing about stuff like this is that if you actually own Toft Manor, you can just license or kind of rent out the grounds around it and basically have some sections of the building that you give to people so they can do all the admin and shit. But for the most part, us actual punters won't actually step a foot inside the actual building itself. There might be a section where we're actually allowed to look at stuff, but I'd imagine for the most part they'll keep the building closed and we can just explore the grounds, which they can easily. It's easier to repair grounds than it is to repair a building that's like a 1,000-year-old. So it makes sense to kind of just lease it out whilst people aren't really able to kind of move around and go on holiday and whatnot. It may be you got some free spaces in your calendar. Rent it out to a rave place, charge them triple what you usually charge people. Bob's your uncle, Granny's your aunt. So it's the following. The venue combines the natural beauty of the UK countryside with the energy, atmosphere, and the spiritual the energy and atmosphere of a spiritual sanctuary. The 17th century manor house once worked on by the world famous painter Whistler. Oh wow, lovely to see. You'll see some nice landscapes there, and if we're capable, if we're possible. It's also home to a unique labyrinth. The labyrinth is a garden in the source of peace and inspiration, which copies the design patterns of the ancient labyrinth of the Charles Cathedral of France. Guests will have the opportunity to walk the sacred labyrinth on the day of the show. There are 2 stages on the venue: the labyrinth stage, positioned by the labyrinth in the gardens, and the treehouse stage, where the artist will play from under a treehouse in the woods. How amazing. And there's actually a video here actually showing you what it actually looks like. Let's play a bit of it. Wow. North entrance to Tough Manor. It looks beautiful. The labyrinth stage area. That looks so cool. Labyrinth stage. You'll tell me that this is a mistake and you've fallen too fast. Find your happiness. Wow. The treehouse Leslie stage. That's in the woods. Wow, so cool. The labyrinth, look at that. That looks awesome, innit? Look at that from the up top. 2 lines of thought. I cannot wait to be tripping my balls off, standing in the middle of that labyrinth, closed-eyed, hands up in the air, twirling around like I just don't care, like I'm one of those... you know what? I'll end up looking like all those wankers that I was taking the piss out of that are hanging around at those play graves early in the summer, that were dancing in the middle of hula hoops. You remember, right? That's what I end up looking like, because as much as I love these guys, I do get sometimes the critique against them, right? The music is like the music you'd hear, during, the music you'd hear for a really, it's either lounge music at a hotel or like FIFA night or FIFA music, right? Like sort of like, when you're kind of loading up the game, the menu thing, whatever it may be, some generic sort of house, progressive house, whatever you call it. But I like it, man. And I still think to this day, because you obviously don't have, the DJ poles are not necessarily what they were. But I would still say someone like a Dixon is definitely still up there in terms of range and his ability to play, anything and everything. He's still definitely up there as one of the best, if not the best DJs in the scene, hands down. Doesn't matter what genre you like or you don't like, he definitely occupies a top 5 spot. A top 5 spot, regardless of who you kind of are into, in my opinion. Of course, the other guys are super talented too, so it's definitely going to be a great occasion. I would still favor my first actual clubbing experience to be an actual club. Of course, that will definitely end up happening, because obviously, from June 21st is when we're able to go back out and enjoy that sort of stuff in terms of, hospitality and nightlife here in the UK. So there's definitely opportunity for me to, from June 31st to July, to go to a nightclub. But if my first clubbing experience or my first, dancing around with strangers and shit happens to be in a field somewhere in the middle of England, on the grounds of a manor house, I'm not going to be complaining. So definitely make sure you get tickets for that. They're available now at the moment. There's also more tickets available now for this other party. Labyrinth presents DJ Cos, Jose Gonzalez, and more at Tough Manor. This is another party. I think it's happening in August. It says here you got DJ Jose Gonzalez live. You got Elder Island live. You got Fred again, Josie Rebel, of course, from the UK. You got MCDE, Daniel Peslo, which is funny. He's put his name as that on the lineup because he got into a bit of trouble earlier in the year. Or last year when people were trying to make him cancel his name. And now I guess he's trying to transition from either the acronym of Motor City Drum Ensemble or straight up to his own name. So I feel the pain there. The public cancellations can be difficult, so pray for that kid, or not if you don't give a shit. You got here Nabiha Iqbal, right? Nabiha Iqbal, Nick Castle, Sadif Adsi, and Susie Ijo. So yeah, so another lineup, of course, they're available. 2 really, really stellar raves happening actually at Labyrinth. One on the 10th of July and the other on Saturday the 7th of August. So definitely check those out. The venue looks incredible. I can't wait to go. Definitely make sure you get yourself involved. One more before we go. One more before we go. Oh yeah, one more. So before we go, right? Do you remember ages ago? Before we go. Let's do one more before we go. So, do you remember ages ago? Or I mean, not ages ago. Maybe last year sometime. I remember saying that the playgraves are probably a good indication of how the scene will end up being when things reopen. And everyone was like, no, man, the playgraves are not. Everyone's going to be like, we're going to be local and we're going to promote all local talents and people won't be able to travel because of the virus and Brexit and all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. But I really did think that playgraves were a really bad omen as to how the scene would rebound after this tragic time that we've been living under this pandemic. And this lineup that I'm about to show you is perfect proof of it. Because there was this adage that because we were living in a post-pandemic world, that people would be restricted in their movements. It would kind of necessitate for promoters and event bookers and venues to maybe tap into their local community and scene more, as opposed to going out and reaching out to the big, obvious brands and names and collectives to go and fill up their lineups. Because as great as a place as the UK is for electronic music and variety and all that malarkey, we do sometimes get a little bit complacent in our efforts to fill up lineups, and we just go to the easiest thing that we can do. Because for as many DJs and artists that we do have, we also have just as many customers and kind of potential clients and potential punters that are more than willing to spend £100 plus per night at a particular venue. So certain people are more prone to go out and just book the Sven Vars and Ricardo Villalobos, get them to play, or Ricardo Villalobos and Craig Richards, wherever it may be, get them to play back to back for 7 hours, charge you for 30 quid and just kind of keep it moving, right? And kind of laugh your way all the way to the bank. But that obviously negates the ability for people like myself who are kind of like on the lower rung. And then of course you've got other DJs on the middle rung and other DJs maybe on the upper middle rung as well, who are kind of suffering from that, because it doesn't necessarily give them the opportunity to build a name in the UK, to get a bit of head, not to give it a head, but I take that back, maybe you get some head in the process, but it doesn't give them opportunity to get a bit of headway, right? They kind of have to languish around, either doing their own festival, doing their own party, or sometimes going out and playing in other regions first, getting a name out there, and then coming back. So this festival called Riverside Festival that's taking place in Glasgow. Again, I have no information about the place. I don't know if they've got a lot of history with Berlin and they're connected with parts of, in Europe and whatnot. I don't know the whole story behind it, but it's really interesting to see a very prominent festival that's taking place in Scotland, right? And it's taking place in Scotland. What's the date here? It's taking place in Scotland in September. So, further down the line, gives an opportunity to other countries to maybe get their act together. Has an entire Sunday dedicated to a who's who of Berlin techno hipsters and influencers and shit. That's who is on that list. And I find it hilarious when the whole idea behind, or the impression that you got from certain people within the industry was that, oh no, things are going to change. They're going to start promoting. No, they're not. They're just going to go back to normal. And that's the issue that I have with all this stuff, is that I don't have an issue with these guys doing this. I just have an issue with people thinking looking at things with rose-tinted glasses. What actually has to happen in the ideal world, in my opinion, is that you should see and recognize the world for exactly as it is, right? Corrupt, messed up. People look for the easiest option or the easiest route out, the path of least resistance, all that good stuff. And you should try and make a way for yourself, right? Again, it's hard to do. You can't go out and just open up your own fabric and shit. But if you're able to do your own night, if you're able to set up your own collective, put together your own little online streaming show, wherever it may be, to present the people that you feel need to be given a voice or a platform, do so. You have to do it, because these other guys aren't going to do it. Never going to do it, because they only seen the money. They're only seeing the easy option out. They're only seeing the numbers on social. Regardless of what they're looking at, what metrics, they're only going to do it their way. And I think sometimes this need for people to kind of shame these places to do the things that they want to do sometimes backfires, because what they end up doing is they end up just putting up a lineup of people that aren't necessarily ready to play that sort of stage just because they come from a particular racial background, and it ends up kind of doing more damage than good. Or they end up just ignoring the people and ends up leaving everyone with a sour taste in their mouth, and no one's happy in the long run. So this should be a clear indication that nothing, and I repeat, nothing, nada is changing in the electronic music space when things reopen. It's going to be the same lineups in the same places. The only way it's not going to be the same is if the venue or the location makes a concerted effort to change things, as we've seen with Printworks. They've got a redacted lineup, which I still have a sneaky suspicion is still going to be the same old people playing there, Amelie Lenz and co. I still think so. Fabric obviously made a really big hoopla about, making sure they don't put out a lineup and getting people on there that are local. But again, I still have sneaky suspicion It'll be the same old people playing in those kind of places. If that's the case, you kind of owe it to yourself and your community and the people you represent to put on your own night and to throw your own parties and to do your own thing. Because if ever there was a time to really make a mark, it'll be now. There's a bit of a lull in the scene. People are desperate for gigs, all this sort of good stuff. People are desperate for a good night out, to have a bit of fun. This is the time to go out there and do it. I guess maybe in 2019 it will be a lot more difficult to get new punters to go and give your label night a chance. But nowadays, I think more people are prone and open to go to a label night of a label they have no idea even existed prior to the night they went to, and to give it a chance and maybe to bump into a new musical hero of theirs. Because as you can see from this Riverside Festival that's taking place from Friday the 5th of September until the 5th, they have an entire Sunday dedicated to a who's who of people that play on Hor. Is that Hor? How do you pronounce the radio station in Berlin? This is all the same people that play on it, maybe minus Amelie Lenz. You got Amelie Lenz, 9999999 live. You got Bamboo Noir. How do you pronounce that? Dax J back to back with Kaborsi, Ilan Alien, Hector Oaks, Ida, Lisa Loft, Paula Temple, Quell back to back with Aisha, Slam, Hybrid Live, and VTSS. This is basically a Grease Muller lineup, right? Playing in the middle of Glasgow. Why? You're telling me they couldn't find a lot more kind of UK Glasgow-y type people that they could go and play with, that they could kind of promote? Dare I say people from flipping Wales? Like, do you honestly think there's no one from the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, that could play in this sort of lineup? Don't get me wrong, the rest of the lineup is a little bit more UK-centric. You can see, maybe looking at it from just, from afar, there's a lot more UK people there. But still, that lineup there on Sunday is a joke, bruv. Like, that makes no sense, doesn't it? It doesn't make any sense, really. And like I said, that's why I said in the long run, these places are going to keep doing what they want to do. They're going to keep making the same mistakes. Not even mistakes. They're going to just keep doing what they want to do because they want to do it. So you owe it to yourself and your community to go and put on your own night, because these motherfuckers aren't going to give you the opportunity to do so. It just made me laugh thinking about it. I was like, I knew it, man. I knew those playgrounds were a good indication of how the scene would bounce back when things reopened. Because it didn't make any sense. Why would these playgrounds, like, even, you look at something even like a possession techno, right? They're a really small kind of DIY, techno collective out in France. Why were they booking someone like Amelie Lenz? It doesn't make any sense, right? They kind of, kids are just raving out in the middle of a car park somewhere, going crazy. Why would Amelie Lenz be the first person you go and pull from? Why? Because it sells tickets, right? You're gonna get the people that are gonna turn up anyway to for your warehouse thing. You're kind of scared that you're not gonna make your money back. You're doing it during a pretty, illegal time to throw a party. It's legal, but not really. Morally, maybe not the right thing. So you're gonna make sure you're trying to get your money back. You're gonna make sure you get your money's worth. Same with this post-COVID world. Post-COVID world, if you're a promoter and you're putting on an event, there's a lot of reward, but there's also a lot of risk, because everyone's going to be putting on a rave. Even I'm thinking about getting back in a promoting game. So everyone's putting parties, everyone's organizing stuff. So you're more kind of prone to probably go and book the bait person, because they're going to sell tickets, as opposed to booking some local label, local collective, local DJ, whatever it may be. All this sort of stuff people were talking prior is just all lip service, really. When it comes down to it, you got an entire Sunday, which is, like I said, essentially looks like a who's who of people that play at Grease Muller, maybe with the exception of maybe Amelie Lenz. It's absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. But hey, what do I know? Anyway, that's the AgostinhoZinga Show, episode number 444. 444. Thanks so much for tuning in. But it's been a pleasure to have your company. If it's your first time checking out the show via YouTube, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, leave me a comment down below. If you're listening via the podcast app, please leave me a 5-star review and share the show with your friends. And of course, support for your patrons always more than welcome at patreon.com/Agostinho, patreon.com/HEOSTINHO. Get involved there. I'd love to hear your opinions about my show on Patreon. Get involved, support the show, back it for as little as $1 or little as £1 on Patreon. I'll see you again very, very soon. Take care. Peace.